Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from digital marketing, sales channel strategies, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate sales. Now, here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters, CEO of Newer Appliances and Retail Band Digital Strategy Agency. If you need expert help growing your digital sales on Amazon, HD, Wayfair, and other marketplaces, find out more at retailband.com. In this episode, you're going to learn from Brad Horowitz on how he turbocharges marketing for small growing companies and how your brand can use in-person event marketing to grow. Brad is a master in creating business strategy, converting clutter and chaos into actionable plans and strategy. And he works with some of the largest brands in the country on in-person marketing events. And we'll get into that. Brad is CEO of Elite Marketing Group. He's spent 15 years growing and evolving his experiential marketing agency into a national shop integrating event, digital, and social media marketing. After years of involvement with the Brand Activation Association as a board member and speaker, Brad got involved in consulting for Quake Capital, a venture capital fund to work with startup and small business entrepreneurs. And Brad, as I mentioned, has spoken frequently at industry events. And what I want to point out for the Page One community, Brad's got a lot of experience with large brands. And in this episode, we are going to focus on what smaller brands can do, and not necessarily just smaller brands, but maybe less sophisticated marketing companies can do. And with his experience at a venture fund. So Brad, welcome to the Page One Podcast.
Thanks, Luke. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And then before we get going here, Brad, can you briefly describe, what your business does and just give the audience a little bit more of an idea of how you guys work?
Yeah. So we're what we call an experiential marketing agency. And there's a lot of terms that people use to describe that, whether it be an event marketing agency or a live marketing agency. Ultimately, what we do is we bring brands, products, and services to events. That could be as simple as a small permitted location and as large as the Super Bowl, and we market and promote them in some capacity. And then over the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, we've been integrating social media and digital marketing strategies to both the front and back of those promotions to engage more consumers consistently and beyond the event.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Brad. And we'll get into an example later on for the audience. But starting off, and everybody listening here, all the Page One community, we're going to talk about, how you can turbocharge your marketing for your company in 2021. We're going to focus on marketing tests, marketing measurement, and product launches, all of which you guys should be doing. Brad's going to translate his big brand marketing into tangible action items that you can accomplish. And listen, I know the truth that some of the brands, maybe you're comfortable in store, you're comfortable, in your sales channel, and you may not even have a marketing team or somebody in charge of maybe digital marketing. So this is going to be an important episode where Brad's going to give tangible ideas that any company can use. And so with that, Brad, what type of startups have you worked with?
So it's been very eclectic. Quake Capital is not a fund that's specific to any particular industry. So, it's included things from food, snack, and beverage like organic protein bars, lots of apps. One in particular was a nanny on-demand app, crypto arbitrage software, smart dog bowls that notify you when you need to feed your pet, new advertising networks for vehicles. So it's really been incredibly eclectic. And I just want to touch on something that you mentioned, which is so important, which is, we're going to be talking a little bit about startups and small businesses, but it's imperative to say that it could be big businesses. Just a lot of people are not experts in marketing, and there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. But, these strategies, whether they be for small or startup, they apply to businesses of all sizes. That's
perfect. And so when you're working with these companies, like what type of marketing channels do you help implement for them?
So I really try to focus, first and foremost on the types of strategies that are easiest to implement and aren't going to break the bank. So that includes things like social media marketing, email marketing, partnerships, peer-to-peer marketing, which also can be called referrals. And then I would say the next phase are things like SEO and pay-per-click, digital marketing, and event marketing.
Well, let's talk about, before we go on, talk about partnership a little bit. Something that we're doing at New Air. It's actually a lot of fun, us working, say, with breweries. We sell beer coolers, beer frosters, and, working with different breweries and doing, some social media shares, and then even products in their breweries that they can sell. And it's a really fun branding opportunity, but something that I think elevates the brand. What is the typical type of partnership strategy look for on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it needs to be that cumbersome. It's really looking at, what types of, other companies or brands you have synergy with, where you can, each provide each other some level of value, if we're talking, for example, about a healthy organic protein bar, are there, local fitness studios and gyms that are within the region where you have distribution and you're looking to grow sales, that you could provide free product, which, both benefits them because they're providing added value to their customers, but of course benefits you because you're getting exposure. So that would be like a simple example. And it's one of the key bootstrapping tools for getting your marketing started is, where can we leverage relationships and where can we leverage, our barter, to not break the bank.
Yeah, and it's a lot like influencer marketing, which we do some of as well. What is the typical, I know this is going to vary a lot, but like in that example, you're handing the protein bars out. What is the typical ask? And what I mean by that is, a lot of listeners here, they're going to have physical products. And so, yeah, they definitely can think of people that they could, give the products to, but then what are they asking for in return? Are you asking just for, social media mention, or is it something totally different that you often will ask for?
You're saying, what does the brand, like what would the protein bar ask for in return?
Right. Like they're given the free protein bars and then the gym is handing them out. Is there really no ask even needed? It's just the gym hands it out and then the users kind of, get to experience that protein bar, or is there something additional?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
So it's gonna range. So a lot of the times it can just be, we call it drops, right? Like people don't even realize how simple marketing can be. Like you can literally find locations and ship product. Is someone going to reject it? You could ship product with a nice letter, to an office building or to a gym or to something that's relevant to your product, and people are going to say, wow, this is wonderful. Like I'll give this out for free to my staff. With that being said, there's much more savvy ways of going about it. As you'll hear me talk about in this interview, I always am in favor of including some type of promotion, some type of hook within any marketing initiative that you are engaging in, and then a specific code so that you can measure that particular marketing activity. So if you are shipping something, maybe you have a particular promotion to go along, with that bar. Maybe it's on the packaging. Maybe it's for the facility to notify their customers so that you can facilitate, further purchasing. And of course, it's always great to ask for social media mentions, even guide those partners to it. Hey, here's some messages. We'd love to hear that. Are you okay with us including you on our messaging? So yeah, I would say that those are probably the two biggest things.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go into that measurement. You talked about, what channels you work with, and, you talked about social, email, partnership, and a couple of others. How do you measure these channels? And, if you can give a couple of examples of things you measured, maybe examples of improvement you've seen, that would be awesome. Yeah.
So I think, measurement is the key here. I mean, it's almost as important as initiatives. Like, why are you going to go forth and execute marketing without knowing if it's successful or not? And I think this is like a really common pitfall, which we can talk about, more later in the interview. So it's really important to know that there's multiple types of objectives before you even measure, right? There's your tangible objectives, whether that be, a membership, a subscription, a call, a website visit, a sale. And then there's other objectives to your marketing, which fall more on the intangible side, such as brand building, loyalty, repeat business. So you have to figure out ways to measure both of those things. For the tangible side, like I said, trying to include a code or a specific promotion is going to make your life a lot easier with this. And then you require that code for purchase, whether it be digital or on-site or what it may be. And that's an easy way to track, immediate lift after that. If you're really well-versed in marketing, you can, include that code for future promotions and track repeat business and loyalty as you go along. For things like brand building and intangible measurement, you can survey customers, whether that be through email or phone, and you can do it at varying times, post-interaction, again, right afterwards, maybe every 3 months, maybe a year from then, to see if it affected, someone's purchasing history or their perception of the brand. You can measure social media traction. There's various softwares out there which let you know if your brand's being mentioned after a certain marketing initiative. And of course, you can always measure search traffic and website traffic.
I mean, the key thing there for everybody listening is you got to measure. And I think a lot of companies that are, not as sophisticated yet on the marketing side, or they're very conservative in laying out the cash because they don't want it to just go into a black hole. And I've spoken with a lot of them and know a lot of them. And so I think, being able to measure in this day and age on digital, you can measure so much more than, 10, 15 years ago. And that allows, someone who might be uneasy on kind of going forward on a certain initiative to have a little bit more confidence because now you can measure it. And I'm glad you brought that point up because that's so key to modern day performance-based marketing. What are talk about a lot of these things that how you measure and the different areas you help out at. But I always love hearing, what the common mistakes that companies have with their marketing strategy. It'd be great to kind of hear that from your perspective.
Yeah. So, I'm going to be a little repetitive here, but, not measuring the marketing efforts that you execute, it just leads to this vicious cycle where you spend money, you implement something, you didn't measure it, or you didn't see the lift, or it didn't work out. And so, you move aside from your marketing efforts and, you never really gain any traction with it or consistency or momentum. Trying to be everywhere at the same time, spreading human capital and budgets way too thin, I think is a really, really common pitfall that I see, especially in the startup community. Everyone's trying to get metrics wherever and whenever they can so that they can get to that next round of funding. And unfortunately, that leads to this mentality of needing to be everywhere at the same time, which can cause, many issues, both in sales and in operations. I think other things with marketing, getting sold on a sexy type of marketing, like influencer or digital, before implementing those more cost-effective, less sexy channels, which I talked about earlier, that can deliver results. And then I would say just, not allocating enough time to marketing, advertising, and sales, not dedicating enough effort or budget to it, not considering it as important as it is. I would say that those are the common pitfalls that I see.
Yeah. And actually backing up a little bit, you work with a bunch of startups and I don't know how much insight you have into the P&Ls or not, but are you able to speak to what their marketing budgets were as far as a percent of sales, or even what you suggest companies should look at? I mean, there's all these, I think it's going to change for every single industry, but it would just be interesting to hear kind of a range of budget size for marketing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be able to give you a specific answer. The ranges are so massive. I would say the best way to look at it is to back into it. So you really need to have a strong grasp of, the simplest thing is just your CPA or your KPI, I much prefer to focus on lifetime value of a customer, or at least, first year value of a customer, and then to back into it, and then to say to yourself, okay, what percentage of that value am I willing to spend? And, early on, if getting customers is the most important thing, because you need traction, you need network effect in growing a startup, you should spend a large chunk, over 50% of that first year value of a customer, or first purchase value of a customer, on marketing and sales, as long as that marketing sales in turn is delivering that customer. As we move along on the trajectory of a business and you become more established, you can lower that. You can lower that to, let's say, 5-10% of sales. But it's really going to be dependent upon what are your primary objectives. And with a lot of startups, with a lot of apps, a lot of digital businesses that we're seeing right now, there's nothing more important than getting customers. The more customers yield more customers. And so early on, it's really important to use a large percentage of that. But with the caveat that, of course, the marketing needs to be delivering. It can't just be on, general marketing or brand building.
Yeah, totally. Now, a lot of the listeners here are going to be selling physical products. Their gross margins are a lot lower than obviously a digital product that you might have worked with, or even, food products. I mean, their gross margins might be 40 to maybe 60%, something like that. And so it actually, in the last couple of years, it's become really hard. And then also there's not always a big lifetime value. I mean, sometimes these purchases are one-off purchases.
Sure.
Maybe, there's a 10% reorder rate or something like that. Have you, like in those cases, paid advertising, Facebook, Google has become really difficult, because if your ROAS is, and I'm just making these numbers up, but like you get like a 400% or 500%, and that includes attribution, which is always shady to believe. But 400 to 500%, and your margins are only like 40, 50%. I mean, there's not a ton of profit there, and you can't really run up the score. In those types of cases, what type of marketing programs do you think make more sense for these types of brands?
Yeah. So, again, that would be a measure of lifetime value or first time, purchase value of a customer. It's going to be lower, if you don't have something that has a lot of repeat business. Also, if you have something that inherently doesn't have a lot of repeat business, you're not as concerned about brand image or the long-term, purchase.
That's a great point.
Arc of that brand. You're looking for the initial purchase, right? So you're now going to shift all of your marketing efforts towards short-term tangible sales. So that's number one. What is the type of promotion that you're going to implement to get that short-term sale? And then you're going to look at, again, the same things that I tell startups. Let's focus on the channels that are not going to break your bank and that are going to show immediate results, and they're easy to measure. So things like email marketing, social media marketing. I don't think people realize how easy it is to implement some of these channels as long as you know how to do it or you're guided by it. But you can just create these systematic schedules to email customers, for example, existing and potential customers. You can set up these systematic schedules to post on social media with promotions. Those are the channels that aren't going to break the bank. You can tie a very specific promotion that's aimed at gaining a customer in the short term, and you can measure it immediately and the traction from it.
Yeah, and I'd 100% agree. And I think all the companies listening, look at your 2021 objectives. And a lot of you may not even sell direct, but even if you don't, I mean, especially if you do, but even if you don't, growing that email list is just like Brad mentioned. It's like the most inexpensive marketing channel, and you can continue to reuse it. And if you know how to do it well and provide value, customers, are okay with those emails if the cadence is fine and the content you're providing is good. So that's a good point. Let's talk about the next idea here. This is a lot of companies. They may not be experts on marketing or have a really strong internal marketing team. So should these companies be hiring an agency? Should they hire? Spend the time to hire that next VP of marketing to lead their team? What are your kind of thoughts either way on that?
I mean, it of course is going to vary depending on the size and the stage of the business. But if our main objective here is, allowing people to implement marketing in a cost-effective way to get started, people that aren't as savvy, I would say it's really imperative for the leaders of the business to carve out some time to focus on marketing and for those leaders to really be the quarterbacks of the marketing strategy. And then you can outsource, certain different marketing elements. Maybe you can hire interns. A lot of startups, I talk about one of my biggest tips with startups is, to evangelize your best customers. There are customers that love your brand and they just want to be more involved. And again, to the partnership component that we talked about before, for very little barter, they're willing to essentially be part of your brand and be a brand ambassador. So you could, use those people as interns or people to spread your message, spread your promotion on social media or to email on your behalf. We've never had access to the freelance economy the way that we do today. So whether it be looking to hire an expert on SEO or pay-per-click, looking to hire a social media expert, we can do it more cost effectively than ever before. I do think, once you grow a little bit, or if you are completely overwhelmed, that there are small marketing agencies that can help you. But to manage them, again, either the leadership's going to need to be involved, or you're going to need to bring somebody in to manage them. And that person should either be somebody who is, has some experience in integrated marketing, or has some experience in marketing for your particular industry or brand. Or type of product service.
100% agree on that. I like the term you use, quarterback. Yeah, we've had previous guests. One of them, Aaron Zanga, and he's a CMO for a great baby mattress company. And, and he didn't use that term, but your term resonates because, he had a lot of outsourced agencies. He quarterbacked them all, but that's because he was a complete expert in marketing and knew how to manage them all. For companies that are, they don't have that hire yet, let's talk about org chart a little bit. I kind of want to ask you, maybe it's obvious, but like what that position is called. So, is it just as straightforward as, a director or VP of marketing, or do you like people who know more about e-commerce? Let's talk about that and kind of like what key skill sets you think that individual will have. And this is the person this is the company that they need to step up their marketing. Oftentimes, the CEO or other leaders aren't going to be able to be that quarterback you talked about. So they got to bring that leader in. And let's kind of try to define what that position looks like.
Yeah, it actually does vary based on what your product is, because, you might, I like to always have like an eclectic group of marketing tests to implement, but, you might just know that, just email marketing is what you want to do, or just social media marketing. And so you might be able to hire, a specific person for that. But, I would say that, you're talking about a VP, a CMO, depending on, what level that you're looking to hire, based on the size of your company and how large of your marketing initiative is going to be, you could probably get by with hiring a middle level person who has some experience and maybe worked underneath a CMO or a VP, at a larger agency or at a brand. Some other titles, I think words that are important to look for are integrated, like people who have experience with like integrated marketing. Omni-channel marketing is another term that people like to use. And these are people that are not just experts in like one particular level of marketing. They kind of have experience in this variety of marketing disciplines. But again, time needs to be spent on it. It's really a matter of who is going to spend on it. If you want to bring someone internally, and also, I didn't mention this on the last comment, but there's consultants like myself, right, who are experts in marketing, and that's a whole other area of freelancing that, you can really for a major discount, get somebody who you wouldn't essentially be able to afford in-house to quarterback some of your marketing initiatives. So that's another alternative, is kind of have a part-time CMO or part-time VP as a consultant. And to be honest, that's something that we've done in my business, just obviously not for marketing, we're a marketing agency, but for other, outsourced needs. Is I'd rather have, someone at a very high level of expertise that can be incredibly efficient for a discounted rate than to just hire someone in-house at a middle level.
That's such a good point, because it's so hard to make the hire sometimes. As much as we want these hires to work out, they don't always. And especially if you're not an expert in hiring marketing people, it can be really difficult to make sure that's going to be the right person. So what does it look like? I'm glad you brought that up. Companies can hire someone like you or other marketing experts. Where do they go to find those people? And what does that look like? Is that kind of, I think a lot of financial companies are doing this for smaller businesses, right? You can have like, a part-time CFO. And is that just a similar idea on the marketing side?
Yeah. There's consultancy groups that consultants are part of. There's LinkedIn. I have found a lot of my consultants on LinkedIn. You can do a search within your network. I like to leverage my network to reach out to see if people have any referrals for those with expertise in that particular area. But a lot of people on LinkedIn, if you just do a simple search, like they have consultant in their title. And so, you'll get a list of people, in that particular area. There are tons of freelance websites like Fiverr. I really like Fiverr, and it's very eclectic, but there's everything from, people who can tutor you on financial documents, right? If you're a startup and you need to know more about a sales sheet, but all the way over to consultants as well.
Yeah, I love Fiverr. That's where this podcast is going after we're done. So you can get great. You can get it's going there for editing, but you can get so much done there, and we've got great people that we work with over there. So completely recommend that. So Brad, before we move off to kind of a final question, because we really want to get into your main business and talk about, an example of an event or a big promotion you worked on. Before we do that, you've been in this business a long time, you're a speaker, you're on boards, you're helping out a VC fund. When you look forward 2 to 3 years, what do you see as the biggest, current or near future opportunity in marketing. And what I mean by that is like some of this stuff, like I mentioned, a lot of paid has gotten really expensive, and it's, it was great, 10 years ago, and it's gotten more and more competitive. What do you see looking forward, and meaning that's maybe where companies should try to invest in?
Well, I mean, the social media and the digital is not going anywhere. But I do think that people are going to need to figure out how to stand out from the clutter in a better way. I think loyalty marketing is going to be looked at completely differently. I think that brands have gotten by or been incredibly successful by focusing primarily on point systems, and they're going to need to be. They're really going to need to embrace true loyalty, which is having a deeper relationship with their customers in order to keep them. I'm in the live marketing channel. And, obviously this line of business has faced many obstacles due to the pandemic. But I am starting to see brands planning. I don't think there's ever more of an opportunity for people to get out there and to actually engage with customers, because they've been just overwhelmed with clutter in the digital and social media spaces. So I do think that the live marketing channel is going to explode. Once we feel more comfortable with things like vaccines, et cetera. I would also say that I see a shift in the future in the influencer network from these, established influencers who have, tons of followers, more to like the regular everyday online user or groups of users. I think we're going to see a shift, and because I think that there's an amazing opportunity for brands to take advantage of regular people that use brands, that have groups of friends and have social networks and that are out there showcasing those brands. And I think that shift is going to take place in influencer, because influencer is expensive, and it is, again, just another hot marketing item that is being cluttered a little bit.
That's a great comment, the last one. And we do some of that. And we work with the micro influencers. And to your point, these smaller influencers actually are more authentic, and their listeners believe them. And I think it's a great point, because some of the bigger influencers, everybody kind of knows when they're, showing a product, that they're getting paid for it, and it's an obvious exchange, and there may not be a lot of loyalty around that product. And I think that's partially what you're getting at there. But yeah, those are good points. And like you mentioned, you're in live marketing, and so that's what your main business is focused on, face-to-face marketing at these industry events. I guess before we get to an example, kind of what are key lessons over the last 15 years that you've learned to become a leading industry expert? Is there something different that you've learned, because not everybody has that experience in live marketing? So maybe you've gained a different viewpoint on marketing that's helped you excel and help other brands.
Well, I think that this goes back to measurement. Not every consumer is the same. So, one of the things that I've learned is evaluating the quality of your marketing and the quality of customer that it's yielding. So, in the live channel, and this is one of the major hurdles that you have in the live channel to compete with digital and social is, well, how can you scale the same way that digital can? And the honest answer is you can't, right? You're never going to be able to scale that quickly. But what we've been able to prove time and time again is that we can have deeper engagement with each consumer and deliver to our clients higher quality of consumer who's spending more, delivering more repeat business, and remaining more loyal over time. And, just a quick example of that is, we've been working with American Express and Delta for 15 plus years at this point. And, obviously these are massive brands that have, massive agencies that execute digital and social strategies. But for this brand, and this is another part of our business, we do on-site customer acquisition or field sales. There's a lot of names for that type of business as well. And, that's the key example. So why would a brand that can scale in unlimited fashion digitally and socially engage in, something like live marketing? The answer is because you can deliver a conversation, on-site customer service, and deliver a higher quality consumer. So that's been one of the biggest lessons. And it's not solely pertinent to live marketing. There's other marketing channels, right? Like if you're talking to consumers on social media, if you're actually engaging with them and having a conversation, that's going to be more valuable than them just seeing like a digital ad, even though the digital ad may reach more people. So that I would say that that's one of the biggest lessons. And then the other biggest lesson that I had really, I think applies to all marketing, all types of businesses and industries, is to start small and to build strong tests before scaling rather than starting everywhere. That's probably been my biggest lesson. And that has taken me, with every client to my business on my own and to the startups that I work with, which is to prove success and to learn what works before scaling. That method is actually a much faster, more efficient and economical way to grow than to start off in a big way being everywhere, right off of the bat. Spreading to everyone, spreading every dollar and every initiative a bit too thin.
Well, I really like that last quote, prove success and learn what works before you scale. Cool. I really like those tangible learnings. I think the audience, especially in podcast format, it's fun for them to kind of have that. They can jot it down and try to incorporate that into how they think. So why don't we end with an example of an event that you put on, and you can maybe talk about the results and how that event worked out.
Sure. Wow. What will I pick? We did a fun event recently. Well, I say recently, but prior to this period of time, Nickelodeon was looking to market one of their shows, which is called Sunny Day. They were looking to spike viewership and to catalyze merchandise sales. So we essentially brought the show to life in the form of a mobile trailer, an enormous mobile trailer, which opened up into about 100-foot by 30-foot experience, which featured the various set vignettes and allowed consumers, children, to engage with the different parts of the show and the different characters, which we had live on site as mascots. We went to 50 plus Walmarts around the country to, like I said, promote the show and what it's about, to allow consumers to engage with the characters and to build excitement about it, to promote viewership. And we had live merchandising outside of Walmart so that we could spur sales at the Walmart. We also had digital sales on site. We promoted these events beforehand on social media and on the website, and post by uploading things like pictures and video. And it was a tremendously successful event for us and for Nickelodeon. We saw those immediate lifts in sales, website visits, social media likes, memberships, viewerships, and we just feel it was a tremendously successful program for brand image, both of the show and of Nickelodeon. Can't tell you how many comments we got from parents asking if we could bring that experience to their school, their birthday party. So that was a huge win-win program for us.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys actually have to conceptualize that? Because that seems like a massive project, right? Somebody had to come up with the idea, and then you literally have to build it out, 100-foot long trailer. How involved were you guys in the kind of the conceptualization and building that out? And then, of course, you had to execute it. Walk us through that part.
Yeah. So, agencies like mine, experiential agencies can handle the entire thing. We can do everything from conceptualization all the way through to execution, but it varies based on the clients. And, clearly they had a show here, so they had an idea of what they wanted to bring to life, which was their show and the various set pieces. So, they came to us with a tremendous amount of assets and ideas of what they wanted to implement. And then we work to mock that up, deliver concepts on what it's going to look like, work with the client very closely to deliver something that, brings to life what their vision is, and then, work with builders to actually build it. And then we, certainly procure all the teams to go out there and execute it nationwide.
That's huge. It's because we're so, when we have our products, it's so easy, right, to put some dollars in the coin machine and have ads show up on Facebook. You got to make the creative and you have to do those types of things. But what you guys are doing is, you're starting with nothing and you got to help. It sounds like in some cases, build these things from the ground up. So you have to have a really well-rounded team to do that, on your end, or at least contractors that you guys are comfortable working with to do all that. So that's really, it's great to hear that example, and it's really impressive as well.
Thank you. Yeah. We work actually primarily with employees. We just like to have a greater hand on the operations that are going on. But I would be remiss not to mention that these things work in collaboration with all marketing channels. Like the ideal is not to just do live marketing or to just do email marketing. The ideal is to have a consistent, really effective promotion and message, and then to overlay that onto a variety of marketing channels so that you are compounding impact across various touch points. So, live marketing is fantastic. I love it. But it shouldn't be in place of these other elements. It should be a supplement to these other elements.
Yep, that makes total sense, and you get that more emotional and feel and that direct relationship. It's awesome. Thanks for telling us that story. And Brad, how can listeners find you or learn more about you or your business?
So you can find my business at elitemg.com, as in elitemarketinggroup.com, but it's elitemg. You can find us on Facebook, Elite Marketing Group. You can find us on Instagram at EliteMG. You can find me on LinkedIn, Brad Horowitz, or you can email me at bhorowitz@elitemg.com. I'm pretty easy to find. Plus, they can just contact you, Luke, and ask how to reach me.
Perfect. Well, thanks for that, Brad. And we're going to have that just for the audience. We'll have that in the show notes so you guys can get in contact with Brad. And listen, thanks for sharing your wisdom. It's a really unique story, a different type of marketing than we've talked about on the Page One podcast. So I really appreciate that, Brad. For the listeners, I hope you guys all enjoyed the interview today. Truly appreciate your reviews on iTunes and hope you join us for the next interview on the Page One podcast. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to double your online sales? Check out www.retailband.com. And don't forget to join us next week with our next amazing guest.